Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and today I'm back to flying solo. Brian E. Roach is on assignment, and Zach, well, I don't know. Zach has let fame and celebrity get to his head as I'm here in my pod doing the podcast today, previewing the Pittsburgh Steelers' latest game this Sunday in Buffalo. Highmark Stadium. Seems like that should be in Pittsburgh, but we have Acrisure. So, but anyways, Orchard Park, New York, playing host to the Pittsburgh Steelers and a regular season starting debut. First start ever for the 20th overall pick, first quarterback taken in the NFL draft this season. That's right. The Steelers making it official. Mike Tomlin making it official. They are going to stick with Kenny Pickett as the starting quarterback for this upcoming game. The Buffalo Bills, if I haven't mentioned already, 3-1 on the season. Could be 4-0, but tough defeat against the Miami Dolphins just a couple of weeks ago. And similarly, I think a lot of fans here realize that the Steelers, their 1-3 schedule is probably flip-flopped from the way it should be. The one victory that is in the win column, and I've been hearing it from some Bengals fans. They were talking about how the Bengals should probably have a couple more wins than what they should be. The Steelers could be 0-4, but at the same time, I feel like, no, that win in Cincinnati, maybe the aberration, maybe it's the TJ Watt factor, defense flying and swirling around as we all expected they could or should, but a lack of offensive firepower to date has the Steelers in this current predicament, as well as some turnovers. You look back to the New England Patriots game at home, obviously a winnable game. I do believe that, obviously, last week, the game against New York Jets, also winnable, really lackluster first half statistics, and maybe the Steelers, who have been trailing in third down percentage, first downs, you name it, everything offensively, they have been in the dumps up to this point. Mike Tomlin turning to the rookie and hoping he can provide a spark, but I also think that's going to provide a spark maybe to some other players on the team. However, the Buffalo Bills, currently they're sitting behind Miami in their own division's rankings. So over there in the AFC East, and that kind of puts the Buffalo Bills at 5th overall right now as we head into the weekend in the current AFC race. So could be some interesting stuff. There's a lot of different names on the injury report for both sides that could make this game maybe challenging, or not as challenging, I should say, because the Steelers are going to need all hands on deck to be able to provide the same type of shock and surprise in Buffalo as they did last year for the first game of the season when they walked out victors against Josh Allen and company. And yes, Josh Allen, he's the leading rusher here for the Buffalo Bills, but also one hell of a passer. You got to give the Bills offense credit where credit's due. Whereas the Steelers are pretty much down in the bottom 5 of every category, or maybe in the bottom of everything, the Buffalo Bills, you could invert that and look at it in the other direction as they pretty much lead in everything that there is to lead in as well. So taking a look at some of the head-to-head statistics here, the Buffalo Bills offensively, they are 5th overall in points scored per game, and they are also 2nd in points allowed defensively. They are currently +2 in the takeaway differential column. Passing yards per game, they're 2nd. They're 12th in rush yards per game. And defensively, they're 1st against the pass and 3rd defensively against the run. Whereas the Steelers, I mean, it doesn't look pretty. They're 23rd in points scored per game, 10 points fewer per game than what the Bills have currently done. The Bills have put up 31 against the Rams, where they won on the road against the defending Super Bowl champions. Then they come back the following week, their first home game against the Tennessee Titans. They put up 41 on the Titans, 19 against the Dolphins, and 23 against the Ravens. Defensively, the Dolphins and Ravens may be stronger teams. You would think the Rams, maybe a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover. I'm not sure that the Titans have the same kind of identity yet. But you look at the Steelers, they've only given up 15th in points allowed per game, 22.5, but it's still over 20. This one, we're going to take a look at some of the odds and statistics and what the bookies think as well right there. But the Steelers are +1 right now by virtue of 4 interceptions the last game, kind of skewing the entire thing. Catchable balls by pretty much every single pass. They throw out the Hail Mary. I'm even talking about Trubisky's pass, Deontay Johnson. These are the kind of errors. You can't have the tip drill against Buffalo and, their secondary, which is also banged up, by the way. But we'll get there. This is the Buffalo offense against the Steelers defense that I really want to primarily talk about, because most of last year's pressure came from one certain point, one defensive player of the year, TJ Watt, who is still out for this game and won't be available. Let's go back to the Steelers just for 1 second. They're 28th in pass yards per game, 23rd in rush, while they are giving up 21st pass and 24th rush. I do anticipate that if they have the available bodies for this game, that's going to be the interesting part, is how are they going to defend a lot of Buffalo's offense, primarily the pass game. Against the run, they just got to contain Josh Allen, and I do think that they have some of the bodies to do that. We're going to see. I think Calvin Austin, for example, is one player that's begun to practice. We're waiting to hear when DeMonte Casey can come back, and they're going to sorely need him, because right now, Trey Norwood, I might as well just get to this injury report. It's like a laundry list, so let's pull it up here. I don't even know where to begin. I have the Steelers one. Let's do the Steelers first, if I so happen to find it here. Yeah, it's this like little thing on the screen. Let's see if I can make this just a little bigger. Because they never updated the website, they only have Buffalo on the Steelers website, and Buffalo's got a longer list than this, although some of them are some veteran privilege, of course. Deontay Johnson shows up on Thursday's report, limited with a hip. Cam Sutton has been limited, groin hamstring all week. Keller Witherspoon is not expected to play this week, pretty much already ruled out in Mike Tomlin's press conference earlier this week, so he is a DNP. Levi Wallace, the other corner. The whole secondary is on this list. I mean, you've also got Terrell Edmonds and Minka Fitzpatrick. Terrell Edmonds with a concussion and Minka with a knee were DNPs on Wednesday, but they were limited, as was Levi Wallace on Thursday. Mason Cole, starting center, also shows up limited with a foot. Chris Wormley, kind of a rotational guy, but you're going to need him in this type of game. Also limited with an ankle. And Cam Hayward, ankle and elbow. Head, shoulders, knees, and toes. Like as a kid, you used to sing that. It's like Cam Hayward is also limited, and it's just, this is the walking dead, the walking wounded. Everyone's like, the Steelers, is this really a get-right game? This isn't the kind of opponent you need for a get-right game, or maybe to throw Kenny Pickett, a rookie, in. The last time a rookie was thrown into this type of situation at Buffalo, it just so happens that the parallels continue, that Ben Roethlisberger was a victor in his first game there back in 2004, and that's pretty interesting, to say the least. You take a look at how the Steelers had this whole list put up on their website with the Buffalo Bills injuries. This just transposes. The NFL just uses the same database here. Christian Benford, a corner. If he's not playing, they're going to have a rookie in place for him, Kyer Elam. So he's a DNP, doesn't look good to play. Jamison Crowder, DNP, doesn't look good to play. Gabe Davis, a very big threat at wide receiver. He's full practice. Tremaine Edmonds, brother of Terrell Edmonds, Steelers safety. So you got both brothers on the injury reports, and maybe we'll see if Terrell Edmonds comes out of concussion protocol. But Tremaine is on here with a hamstring. Daquan Jones got a veteran day of rest. And Dawson Knox, a DNP. This is the starting tight end, foot and hamstring. So we're going to have to check out the cheat sheet and get some more updates, folks. There's a ton on here. This keeps going. This is, like I said. But wait, there's more. Jake Kumaro, wide receiver, DNP. So a lot of their wide receiver depth is getting banged up. Cam Lewis, corner. He was a full practice. Isaiah McKenzie, concussion protocol, limited. Von Miller got a day of rest. Von Miller having a little bit of career renaissance. We were talking about him being an older guy. What is he now, like 32, I think? But he has 3 sacks so far this season. He's not even the team leader in that case. But I think Russo is with 4. And I'll get to that in a second. But check out the cheat sheet tomorrow, because I'm going to have to go over the Friday injury report and then see who may be inactives. But still, wait, there's more. Mitch Morse, starting center, limited, now full practice. You have Justin Murray, an offensive tackle. He's limited. Ed Oliver, man, just another stud player there in the middle. This was a guy that wreaked some havoc on the Steelers last year. And we were talking about how at defensive tackle, he's probably not given the league recognition that he probably should. So got to give him some props. Jordan Phillips is right there with him, but also limited with a hamstring. Jordan Poyer, free safety. They're already banged up at safety as well. Oh, geez. Why am I drawing a blank on who his partner in crime is here? I'll get it in a second. But DNP, both days with a rib injury. Roger Saffold got a veteran day of rest. So he's looking likely to be active for that day. On Sunday, 1 o'clock, going to be seen by most everyone around the country. Tony Romo and company going to call that game as well. I got to take a look at this with the roster real quick because it's just bugging me who just went on the on injured reserve, but the Bills banged up in their secondary as well, and I'll have to get to that here in a second. But it's Micah Hyde. That's who I couldn't think of. Micah Hyde hurt, and also Tre'Davious White is still not back on the field for the Buffalo Bills. So they're hurting, they're licking their wounds a little bit, but we'll talk about the Steelers offense here in a few minutes. Still kind of just going defensively for the Steelers against that Buffalo Bills offense. Like I talked about Stephon Diggs. Actually, I didn't talk about Stephon Diggs. He is a world beater. He is like an Antonio Brown, like a prime Antonio Brown, just coming in to his own here. 31 catches so far, 406 yards for 4 touchdowns. By far, just studly. Josh Allen, 1,227 yards. He has 10 touchdowns and 3 interceptions, completing a high amount of his passes. The one thing, people are probably looking at me and they're going to be thinking, like, Joe, do you really think the Steelers have a chance? Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. If Mitch Trubisky was playing in this game, I would tell you, without a shadow of a doubt, the Steelers are just going to get their asses kicked. They could still, but I'm not entirely certain that with Kenny Pickett and Buffalo, I think Buffalo got to Lamar Jackson a couple of times last week. I'll pull it up. I know they only got to Lamar, vice versa. They only got to Josh Allen. The Ravens did, I believe, just once. Let's take a look at this. I know I've got this pulled up here, but it's important statistics, and I know like the Ravens and the Steelers are not exactly the same team, but it kind of gives you an idea. So 2 half sacks and then the full sack, so twice did the Bills get to Lamar Jackson. Mobile QB sometimes takes some sacks statistically while moving around. Could be the same with Kenny Pickett. Oweh for the Ravens was the only one who got home to Allen, similarly with some mobility. Now, we saw Kenny Pickett scoot last week, and I think Kenny Pickett brings a whole different energy to the Pittsburgh Steelers and their offense. I think you're going to see some things a little different. A lot of people are talking about whether or not he's handcuffed by the play calling with Matt Canada. I don't see it. They don't let a guy sneak it on 4th and 1, even go for it as a rookie if you don't have confidence in him. I saw him make some changes at the line. Again, there's some little bit of debate as to the definition of what an audible is. Are you completely changing the play? When you have 3 wide receivers out there or 2 tight ends, what are you going to do? You got Derek Watt out there often, by the way. He's out there a lot this season. There's maybe not as much flexibility. You're not going to go into like the old I formation with Dan Kreider and maybe Jerome Bettis or Willie Parker or whoever else might be back there. Oh, what was I was trying to think of the 2008 team. Oh, I always forget that. Kerry Davis, was that who it was? Fullback there. So you're seeing the fullback in here a lot more. And I think that's some of the way that you're not shifting as much, but there's still RPOs built into a lot of this system. And maybe some freedom is probably versus audible, maybe a little more freedom to change some things around. You got to look at the protection. So I'm not going to say that like one guy was handcuffed and one wasn't. I just think one guy just plays a different level of football than the other, and that would be Kenny Pickett. But again, I know it's a short window. It's a lot. This could be the biggest disappointment ever. But I'm not going to say it's the biggest disappointment ever with Kenny Pickett just because, yeah, we're going to give him a little bit of a pass. He's rookie, okay? This is his first start. So if he goes out there and stinks up the joint, so be it. But he has never shown that the moment's too big for him. He's already throwing for almost twice as many yards per pass per attempt than Mitch Trubisky is. And that's why I have some hope that the Steelers can get the job done versus the Buffalo Bills defense. And now it's just a matter of who's healthy for the Steelers on their defensive end. How are they going to shut down Josh Allen? Are you going to be able to spy? Do we see Mark Robinson finally get a helmet this week? It hasn't been like the Steelers to allow like Ulysses Gilbert or Buddy Johnson. Usually that extra inside linebacker, he's not getting a helmet on game days. So I don't know with the way Robert Spillane, I know I've been hard on him. Devin Bush has been better. There's been a little bit too much of a rotation, and I think the Steelers need to bite the bullet and just decide this is going to be the guy that plays, this is going to be the guy that sits, and that's it. They're going to need some help because Trey Norwood has been one of these extra defensive backs, dime backer, whatever. Arthur Millette is kind of strictly a slot guy. If you're without Levi Wallace and or Cam Sutton, what happens next? James Pierre? Are you playing Josh Jackson, who they elevated last week, former second-round pick of the Green Bay Packers, who was plucked from one practice squad to the next team, like signed off the street? Like he's been like all over the place. He hasn't been like it hasn't been steady. So when you look at it that way, the Steelers have to get into like a shootout mode in order to maybe have a chance with this game. It could be ugly defensively both ways. Just because of the banged up secondaries. The Steelers definitely need Minka out there. This is an all-pro, a game changer, a guy who makes splash plays. I don't have nearly as much confidence if there isn't Minka, if there isn't Terrell Edmunds, if Cam Hayward's banged up. I know that Montravius Adams was just called or just moved up to the first team there, but as we said, Tyson Alualu played a couple more, maybe 3 more snaps than he did in that game too. Malik Reed not really getting home, kind of giving way to DeMarvin Leal playing more of an edge rusher outside linebacker role. We saw the Steelers use all 3 inside linebackers actually, which is kind of 3 on the line. A little bit different, and even in some cases 4 on the line. Remember, they're playing like a lot of like sub package football versus a traditional 3-4 in most cases. And when you have a mobile quarterback, when you're playing against, you're gonna have to do these kind of things. You're gonna have to spy where Josh Allen is, and just I'm not worried about shutting down their run game other than the quarterback run game. And he makes those backyard football Ben Roethlisberger-esque type plays. A lot of respect for Josh Allen, a lot of respect for this offense. Just remember, though, the Bills don't have the same offensive coordinator, same quarterbacks coach, and things like that. So they're still, well, they're a little more fine-tuned, I would say, than the Steelers offense, putting it lightly. They still got some changes, too, that they're dealing with, that they're working through. There could be some wrinkles to their game. So got to get Minkah Fitzpatrick out there for and Edmonds, for sure. And definitely, you got to hope that Levi Wallace, formerly of the Bills, comes back for a little revenge game. Got to hope Cam Sutton's not too banged up. Got to hope that even if these guys start, I know they're limited in practice. God, that's tough. It's just so tough because you got, if you're limited, you're giving like some of the scraps to everybody. And it just doesn't seem good. And especially if you lose somebody in game, I just fear going further. Alex Highsmith got to be a key to this game. They got to get to Josh Allen. They got to put some pressure on Josh Allen. Going to see if it's going to transpire. Again, the Steelers, they haven't won without TJ Watt, and TJ Watt is a game changer. So playing on the road in Buffalo, rookie quarterback, offense hasn't looked too good so far. Defense is in shambles. It's not looking exactly pretty for the Pittsburgh Steelers trying to defend against Josh Allen and crew, Stephon Diggs. But it does help, though. Does help. Gabe Davis, he's tough. That's a tough guy to defend. But maybe if Dawson Knox isn't out there, I don't think the Bills have the best run game with Devin Singletary. So maybe they can focus a little more on just trying to contain some of the big explosive plays. And maybe if they can keep the score reined in a little bit, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers have a fighting chance on the road, even with their rookie QB. So, folks, we need to talk to you about BUSR, sponsor here of the Steel City Underground podcast. And if you want to bet with confidence, you want to bet with BUSR. Just to let you know, you sign up with the promo code Steel City. There are a handful of offers that you can take advantage of, including a match of up to $1,000 and $25 in casino chips. So as you're taking a look at BUSR, and their award-winning customer service. I want to just keep in mind some of the lines that are available. Some of the props on this game are just absolutely ridiculous, and I think even yours truly I might even just place a bet right here. But you want to trust trust the experts at BUSR. Get your VIP treatment with their award-winning 24/7 customer support, and take advantage of the new member bonus of $1,000 plus $25 in casino chips. You can play a whole lot of different games, including casino and racing games, plus all of your favorite sports, NFL, NCAA, getting into Major League Baseball playoffs. So let's take a look at some of the lines. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, historically, they have never been this big of a dog in a game in the modern era. Since 1970, they are plus 14. They're getting 14 points at Buffalo. I feel like I want to take this. I know some people feel that they're going to get the doors blown off of them. It all depends on this injury report. If you get Minka and you get Edmonds and you get Sutton and or Wallace, I think they have a fighting chance to make this a big shootout. Of course, the over-under here is 46.5. I might be going over on this. I mean, I know the Bills can probably get to 30 points on the Steelers. That's the scary part. They've been averaging 28.5. I went over some of the other numbers that were here. The Steelers have been skewed a little bit because of defensive touchdown, of course, the one with Minka Fitzpatrick, but 18.5 without Kenny Pickett. You saw the Kenny Pickett factor with 2 touchdown drives. And I know there's not film, there wasn't film, and teams might be differently prepared for him, but I don't think teams are going to shut down Kenny just all the way just yet. So head on over to BUSR and let's take a look at some of these bets. Let's take a look at even the prop bets. Of course, the money line for the Steelers is plus 570. The Bills minus 890. And some of the prop bets, I mean, there's some crazy ones here. Total touchdowns over under for the Bills, 3.5. I'm not sure I'm looking at that one. I was really looking at the Steelers total touchdowns over 1.5. I may even put my money where my mouth is. $25 bet, getting you back a little over 43 and change. That looks like a cool one. You could put some parlays on here too. You could place the single bets, so you could add some more selections to this. Of course, just stacking bets. Hey, you know what it is. Total field goals, 1.5 by the Steelers. Well, let's check the weather. I mean, I think this is going to be a pretty an overcast game. Going to be one of those crisp, cool October afternoons. I think Chris Boswell is going to be in range to kick a couple of field goals in this game. So 1.5 on the touchdowns and the field goals. I actually feel pretty darn good about putting that on my bet slip. And I got them set as singles, but you could always put it as a 2-leg parlay as well. First team to score, all the same stuff as usual that's here. But if you get down to some of the player props, rushing yards, Devin Singletary, 49 at a plus 100. Kenny Pickett, 19, a minus 117. And you could change this. You can get a plus 161 if you think Kenny rushes for 30 or more. Najee Harris at 50, that's just the default, but at 60 plus 108, at 70, 127. That's a little bit, maybe a little more rich for my blood. I'm not exactly sure where I might want to take that to this point, because Najee Harris hasn't necessarily lit up the scoreboard yet when it comes to running the football and then sharing a little bit of the load with Jalen Warren to this point. I mean, this is where I'm getting into the offensive part of this, folks. It kind of corresponds with the sponsor here at BUSR. So, again, Steel City is your promo code, and if you head on over there, or just check out the show notes wherever you may be listening to this, bit.ly, bit.ly, BUSR-Steel City. So it's bit.ly/BUSR-Steel City. Make sure that's all lowercase. Or you can head on over to our link tree that's linked in all of our social profiles and bios, whether you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, or Instagram. And those are all, if you're watching that, you can see that here, or you can get that out of the show notes as well. Not trying to do as hard of a heavy sell for you as you think, but I just thought this was a very interesting game to try and pick up even some of these player props. I think with Kenny Pickett, I'm feeling a lot more confident, and maybe a George Pickens touchdown at plus 300. Stephon Diggs, of course, is a minus, as you might expect. He's very much favored, but Josh Allen even running in. So there's a lot of stuff to put your money there, and of course you get that deposit match to Steelers with 14. I don't know that they're going to get blown by 14. They've been in all of these games. That's the biggest thing thus far, is that the Pittsburgh Steelers, to date, have been in every single game. You take a look at Cincinnati Bengals, just 3 points in that victory separates them. 3 points separates them in a loss to the New England Patriots. You have the Cleveland Browns. That fumble off the hook and ladder and everything. Take those 7 points off the board. That's 22-17. That's a 5-point game. They're in that. Now, I know if you're betting, that's not going to help. That's not going to make a lot of people happy. But I'm just saying, is you're looking at 14 points. That's not a 14-point game either by the Cleveland Browns. New York Jets by 4. That's 1/2. That's a 10-6 halftime with a 59-yard field goal from Chris Boswell. I think the Steelers are going to be in this a lot closer than what people tend to feel, what they tend to think. So let's take a look at the Steelers offense. Maybe not as many injuries. I know Mason Cole just showed up on this report. Oh, yeah, I got to put this one in here real quick. Let's jump to special teams real quick. Looks like Steve Sims is going to be replacing this guy, Gunnar Olszewski. That's straight from Steve Sims, from several Steelers beat writers, getting a quote from Sims saying that he's expected to be the return specialist for this game. Gunnar Olszewski, I think, thin ice in the doghouse with Coach Mike Tomlin, as stated in Tomlin's press conference. So that one's a little bit important to take a look at as well, because Gunnar has not been helpful, and the Steelers are lucky because they could go pretty deep on the bench here. Steve Sims was the guy in the preseason that most impressed, and if he's called up, he could do all the same type of jet sweep type action and things that were counted on by Gunnar Olszewski too. So keep that in mind. I'm trying to figure out. Let's see. I'm going to take a look too. Steve Sims, I think, is a little bit bigger of a receiver than Gunnar is. Gunnar is coming in. Gunnar isn't listed. It's 6 foot 190. I don't think so. Like, just that he doesn't pass the eyeball test there. I'm sorry. But Steve Sims, 5'10", 176. I thought he might be listed at exactly the same. I thought they were both 5'10", 5'11 guys at 176. So a smaller guy, but very similar to Calvin Austin has been working out too. 5'9", 162. Fastest, one of the fastest times in the NFL draft this season. So I don't believe he will be activated for this game. And if he gets activated, he's got to be called up from injured reserve, and somebody has to come off of this roster. Gunnar Olszewski, your time might be up, bud. I'm sorry. But that's if they go and pull the trigger this week with Calvin Austin. Steve Sims, on the other hand, on the practice, or no, Steve Sims actually did make the full roster. I apologize. I thought that he was on the practice squad, but I forgot. And that's because I honestly didn't think he was going to make the team over Anthony Miller at one point based on what we saw in the preseason. So just a couple of notes there with the special teams play, and we'll take a look and see how that plays out. Of course, on the Steelers offense, relatively healthy with the exception of Mason Cole showing up limited. So Mason Cole's got to be there. I think the offensive line has been gelling. The offensive line moved up. Again, it's like we only mention this when Pro Football Focus is complimentary of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but the offensive line has now moved into the top half of their rankings after being, I believe, 30th. It was they were 30th overall heading into the preseason rankings, headed into the regular season. Pro Football Focus did not like them. I don't think anybody else, including myself, were thinking that they would make that big of a turnaround, but I also realized that Kendrick Green was the guy that they were trialing out at left guard. And we've seen some like different play from the offensive line over this course of time, but they're up to 13. They've allowed the fewest pressures of any team season to a quarterback. And that's just not Mitch running around. That's pressures, period. I think that's pretty impressive. And when you take a look at the offensive line with quarterback play, they've attributed most of the sacks that Mitch Trubisky took. And remember, 3 1/2 last week and then an interception. The reason the Steelers made the change to Pickett, most of these have been attributed to either the quarterback, Trubisky himself, or the sacks have been attributed to, let's say, Najee Harris not finding a block, Jalen Warren not finding a block. So the offensive line has kind of lived up to their standard. They held Myles Garrett to like nothing. They've held a lot of these pass rushers to nothing. So we'll see how they hold against Ed Oliver and company with the Buffalo Bills. Von Miller, pass rush specialist. We'll see if scheme ends up defeating some of this. I think like maybe one of the weaker players on this unit, Dan Moore, has been kind of holding his own. You got to just get rid of some of the penalties. Pro Football Focus has Dan Moore 52nd of 69 Dotson is 27th of 71. Mason Cole is 6 of 36. James Daniels is 15 of 71. And who's my other guy here? Chikwama Okorafor is 20th of 69. Three of these guys in the top 20, and Mason Cole almost cracking top 5 as far as centers. I mean, that should help the Steelers maybe turn this ship around. We might get to see them push around the Buffalo Bills a little bit. We might get to see a little bit more out of a run game that has been stalling to date with Najee Harris. Najee, through these 4 games, he has 23 yards, 49, 56, but he did have a best with 18 carries for 74 yards against the Jets last weekend. That was his best yards per attempt. They've been creeping up each game, 2.3, 3.2, 3.7, and then 4.1 last week. So Najee Harris might start getting this job done. Jalen Warren, got to protect the football, but Jalen Warren, in relief of Najee Harris, hasn't been too bad either. 7 yards in the first game, 3 for 7, 4 for 15, 4 for 30, and then 3 for 18. His yards per attempt, 2.3, 3.7, 7.5, and 6. So he's been finding some of the holes too, where if this Liz Frank type thing that he had going on during training camp has lingered in here, the Steelers have a capable 1-2 punch if necessary. And I think they could utilize this along with take some of the load off of Kenny Pickett, who isn't just going to be dinking dunking everywhere. But I do think the Steelers need to get back to a little bit of basics. I mentioned Steve Sims. If he's getting a helmet, maybe over Gunnar Olszewski in this game. The jet sweeps, Chase Claypool, who we all know got to make these combat catches. But Chase Claypool was used earlier on as kind of a Deebo Samuel type player. So if you could get him into some of these jet sweep type plays, Steve Sims, give them a little bit of different looks. I like the Steelers' odds of being able to run in, throw the ball a little bit more, play some play action. You're going to get Kenny that's going to be able to squeak out there and maybe make a couple plays with his own feet. And I think everything's just going to kind of fall into place. Deontay Johnson, I think, is still a threat and deep threat. George Pickens emerged last week. And don't forget Pat Freiermuth as the tight end for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think he is a security blanket with a ridiculous catch radius. It's kind of unfortunate to see what happened or what transpired in the game, like I said, with the tip drills and these players. Because although this one wasn't the one that was thrown, this one was thrown by Mitch. And really late, by the way. This was to George Pickens earlier in the game with Sauce Gardner on him. The Buffalo Bills they don't have Tre'Davious White. They don't have like their centerpiece of the defense. So taking a look at that, they might go to Kyer Elam. Christian Benford, like I said, was on the injury report. Dane Jackson is their other corner. Jordan Poyer's on the injury report. They're already without Micah Hyde, so they have DeMar Hamlin playing in his place. They could have a whole set of secondary players that are out. Tremaine Edmonds, who's their middle linebacker, if he's out as well, they're going to have to go deeper on the bench, maybe Tyrell Dodson, and a name that everybody remembers, Tyler Matakevich, who doesn't really see a whole lot of defensive playing time, still more of a special teams ace. However, there are other linebackers. Matt Milano has been a kind of a special player. He's kind of an underrated guy around the league, and then that defensive front with Greg Russo, who and Boogie Basham, who spells him too. Jordan Phillips is in there. They got a nice rotation. Ed Oliver's up front, Daquan Jones, Tim Settle, and then of course Von Miller playing on the opposite of Russo. So that front and AJ Epineza, they've got a rotation of guys. Like, they go 7-8 deep here, and that just makes those other starters like Oliver, Russo, Jones, and Miller just that much more effective. So the Steelers line, just as long as they can keep the pressure off of Kenny Pickett, I think the pass game will be good. Get Najee Harris involved in this pass game once again. This is where he could be a threat. This is one of the few passing touchdowns that the Pittsburgh Steelers have on the season. So I think if you can get the ball in 22's hands, you're going to see something exceptional on the ground and in the air. That's two of my keys to the game are just talking about jet sweeps. We're talking about jet sweeps with the wide receivers to get the run game going, and we're talking about getting the running backs involved in the pass game. I know some of this is just them getting involved in pass protection, a little bit of extra protection back there, maybe for Pickett. That may happen, but maybe they chip somebody and leak out. That would be nice. A little wheel route here or there, play actions. I would like to see some of that. The Buffalo Bills just played the Baltimore Ravens. This is something that's being understated for this game. What always happens to the opponents of teams? What happens when the Steelers and Ravens play? The next game, both of these teams play like just garbage. They're beat up. They're just knockout, drag out, slugfest. And it happens usually to the teams that play the Pittsburgh Steelers as well. Whoever like benefits, let's say whoever the Jets are playing this week, although it's still the Jets, so let's not quite go there. But the Browns play the Falcons, and they had a little bit of extra time too, and they dropped the game to the Falcons. This is like it's like just a cause and effect. The Steelers are going to get a team that just they came away with a late victory. They were down against the Baltimore Ravens, and through the first half, it was really a tale of two halves. At one point before halftime, the Ravens were up 20-3. They did give up a drive in under 4 minutes. The Ravens did to Buffalo, and it ended up being 20-10. The Ravens could not muster a score in the second half. They gave up 4 straight scoring drives and lost 20-30. But Buffalo started this game not in the best of worlds here. They were intercepted. They did have just a field goal, and then a fumble, 2 punts, and then they went from there just before halftime. They had 11 plays, 76 yards, and it's hard to say 11 plays, 76 yards in a minute 38 possession. So again, deadly, and got to be careful, but not insurmountable here. Buffalo or the Ravens kind of went the other direction in Buffalo, who scores a touchdown before half, field goal, touchdown, punt, and then the game-winning field goal as time expires for the game. The Ravens, on the other hand, a little bit tougher. They lose this game. Maybe a game that they had in control. They scored the first 2 touchdowns of the game against Buffalo. Of course, the short field with the interception, only a 4-yard, 2-play drive for Lamar Jackson and company. 15 plays, 81 yards. They got 2 more field goal drives. So they had 4 scoring drives to start right out the gate. And of those, they had a 15-play drive and an 11-play drive. They ended up a 3-and-out for a punt. They ended the half. And then they were 3-and-out, 5 of 18, both punts, 7 for 23 with an interception, 14 of 86. Lamar Jackson, classic. 2 interceptions to finish this one out. So you don't want to see Kenny Pickett finish this way out, but it's just to give you a little bit of like a glimpse, maybe a glimmer of hope that, Buffalo's defense is definitely something that could be beatable as long as the Steelers have maybe ironed out some of the wrinkles. I've been accused of being sunshine and rainbows before. And Joe, how could you possibly, we've never seen anything like this to date. How could you possibly think that the Steelers could be able to overcome this with the Buffalo Bills? Well, just quite frankly, it depends on which team comes into this game healthiest. And I think Kenny Pickett's a baller. But if there's any game that the Steelers are going to drop, it would be this one. I don't think that they're 14-point dogs whatsoever. 46, what did I say? 46.5 over under. I think this game could very likely be a shootout. And I think Mike Tomlin's going to play aggressive. The Steelers are sitting here at 1-3. What have they got to lose at this point? I think playing it safe in this game and trying to come out with a 3-point win off Chris Boswell's foot, that's only going to happen at the end of this game, where they make it a little more conservative to try and chew some clock. So time of possession, along with the getting running backs involved in the pass game, and of course, the jet sweeps, getting the wide receivers involved in the run game. I think I don't have defense here because my confidence in defense, if you have all those secondary players out and the way they were not able to stop the Jets late in this game, the Steelers offense got to carry this one. So time of possession is going to be paramount. And I think they get a little more aggressive here to move the sticks. I don't think the Steelers put themselves in a lot of third and whatever situations. I think they're going to be moving the chains on first and second down, larger chunks, 6 to 8 yard chunk plays more often, just based on the tempo that Kenny Pickett's able to play. And they may play a little more up tempo as well. So that's where I'm coming from with this. Again, it will very much so help if the Steelers can have some of their studs in the secondary there to just stray the course, and just hopefully, you got Minka. What if the Steelers get a defensive touchdown? It's one of those things. This game could go anywhere, and I think just being the underdogs that they are for the first time again in this modern era, that might put a chip on their shoulder that most people are overlooking. You've got an X factor. Oh, can't see him. Got to get him on the other camera view here. Pointing out Kenny Pickett. You got Kenny Pickett. I think Kenny Pickett might be that X factor. You may have some growing pains with the rookie, but I also think that his floor is a lot higher than what Mitch Trubisky and even Mason Rudolph would be able to give you if the Steelers went with one of the veteran quarterbacks here. Mike Tomlin said he thought about perhaps keeping Mitchell Trubisky in there. That's a scary thought to me, and I don't one that I'm too particularly fond of. So hopefully the Steelers can be a little bit healthy heading into this game. Hopefully they get most of their bodies on the field, because if they don't and they're playing a lot of backups, they're going to need even more from the offense than what I'm already asking maybe for the impossible. But, again, this is, one of these things. This is a game. It's an AFC game. It would be nice to have this as far as tiebreakers and everything else are concerned. Because let's face it, like Buffalo right now, behind Miami, you don't know what's going to happen in that AFC East. And they're sitting behind, and they're in a wild card spot. So when you're talking about the 3 wild card spots now, 7 teams making the postseason, this is one that the Steelers, I think, need to take. The head-to-head is going to matter a lot. But first, it's got to be division, and it's got to be conference. So you need a conference win. You need a head-to-head. Would be really nice to pick this one up. If it isn't, I don't believe it's the end of the world, even though they've got the short end of the stick when it comes to the next 4 games. 3 of 4 on the road. Got some very difficult teams lying ahead, like the Bucks. I mentioned the Miami Dolphins, Philadelphia Eagles. We're going to see where those teams, they continue rolling the way they were. But I don't think those are just completely I'm not chalking up L's everywhere. I'm not going to have them going into the bye with 1 loss. Just have them at 1-7. I think they're going to come out of this maybe around a 3-4 or something like that. Where are we at now? 1-3? Yeah. So they could pick up 2 games. Oh, that would be 4-4, right? Yeah, my math's off. 3-5. 3-5 is probably, if they could split 2-2 with the latter half of the schedule, that'd be pretty awesome. And if they could beat one of these teams, one of these teams that are skyrocketing right now up and through the standings, I think that's a confidence booster. I think this meat part of the schedule with Kenny Pickett, if it doesn't break him, it's going to make him. It reminds me of that Steelers team that got hot and was the 6th seed in 2005. Nobody was going to slow them down. They were a running freight train. And I think just playing the harder teams and putting some building blocks together, and then you get healthy and you get TJ Watt back and you have all these other names here and you could be a healthy team. Casey out there. We don't know. Calvin Austin could add a wrinkle to this team. I believe truly that this team could make some noise and make some noise late. It'll be, again, it's going to be a wild ride. I don't think they're going to be in the spot where everybody thinks right now, if the season ended today, they would have the 5th overall pick. Oh, that's just garbage. And they're already trying to predict what positions they might be going after. Go after an offensive tackle. Okay, maybe for Dan Moore, one of the lower guys on the totem pole here. But I believe, too, that I think left guard might be a suspect area in the future. But for right now, those guys are doing their job. Kevin Dotson, Dan Moore, and the other guys are just exceeding all expectations, as I mentioned. Keep Kenny Pickett upright. That might be a 4th key of the game. But Kenny doesn't need to be upright, as we've seen, in order to make those big plays, folks. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Here we go. 1 o'clock Sunday, Highmark Stadium, Orchard Park, New York. Buffalo Bills hosting Pittsburgh Steelers, 3-1 against 1-3. 14-point underdog, Pittsburgh Steelers. Wonder if they can make some magic again in Buffalo. As Mike Tomlin said, this has become almost a regular season game between these teams. They've seen each other so frequently over the last few years. But, again, they had shots at home with Duck Hodges. So I've seen some of those defensive schemes and some of the guys Duck Hodges was playing with back then. I moved that game to a Sunday night. I know the Buffalo Bills, everybody's favorite, their darling right now, but I truly feel, especially in coming off of the way that they had to play the Ravens as well, that's a big emotional win. They go back home. Their momentum going to carry them? Or are they going to be kind of like, will they play down maybe to the Steelers? The Steelers aren't going to be playing down this week. I guarantee you that. I think there's a new energy that's pulsing through that locker room. And whether or not it's a victory in the actual win column will be the question. I'm not going to say that with 100% certain confidence, but I would be very much so surprised if the Steelers don't cover 14. I'd be surprised if they don't even at least cover 10 points on this game. So get in on the action. Don't forget bit.ly/BUSR-Steel City. My name is Joe Kuzma. Sorry I don't have my co-pilots with me, but they'll be back. And hopefully with a voice, sober, feeling good. Brian's missing all of us out there. He says hello as well. Just want to get the content out to you as quickly as possible. And kind of tough to talk about some pregame stuff when the Steelers are just such, like I said, the walking wounded. So we'll see what they can put together and see if they compete, see how they compete. Because if they compete, this is like, I'm telling you, this is the launch point of something special. If they don't, it's going to be a little bit of a bumpy ride with the next few teams, but we'll see if it's just like one of these lines that goes straight diagonal or as close to up as possible, or if we just get those steady steps up to where they need to be. But I think the offense is there, man. I really do. I know I sound like just the homer, but just seeing is believing. And when you're in that stadium and you just see just the turnaround and how everyone is playing and everyone getting behind the kid, Kenny Pickett. This might be the storyline for the NFL. Don't forget, the bookies had Kenny Pickett and George Pickens among the front runners for offensive and overall rookie of the year in the NFL. Sometimes they're right. They're just not going to be right about that. Plus 14. Till next time. Once again, my name is Joe Kuzma. We encourage everyone out there, no matter where you're watching, listening, thanks for supporting Steel City Underground. And until next time, we encourage you to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.